among others. And we're now joined by Adam Sparks, the Tennessean, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. And Adam, it's been a pretty good offseason for Tennessee. They seem to have some momentum. Do you feel like where they are now that spring drills have wrapped up, transfer portal, all of that, they feel pretty healthy about who they are?
Yeah, I mean, they've still got some spots to fill if they want to in the transfer portal. And I guess that's probably the case for a lot of people. But they're kind of two parts on their team. They had the highest scoring offense in school history last year, and they have most of those pieces back. They filled in with a couple of others. Brew McCoy, who is one of the best wideouts in the transfer portal, who they added on offense. They feel like he can be a guy that can keep that offense running, but he's got to get a waiver from the NCAA for his transfer to go through or for him to be eligible immediately. And then the flip side of that is defense, where they had some issues last year. And they felt like they would have even more issues in the secondary this year. They've added pieces in the transfer portal, Georgia Tech transfer, Ohio State transfer. But, it's a coin flip. I think that's the case for all college football teams. Now, when you're adding so many pieces in the portal, it's not like building a team slowly with guys coming back and you're asking for them to make incremental improvements. You're just plugging in guys and hoping that they fit immediately, and that's what Tennessee is going to look for in the fall.
How much does having the quarterback and Hendon Hooker back again in the way that, again, record-setting offensive year, like you said, help them get some of those transfers and position themselves for the future under Josh Heupel?
Yeah, I mean, they know what they're getting with him. I mean, it took a few games to decide that Hooker was their quarterback last year, but once they did, he had the best passer efficiency in school history, and that's the record that I think Peyton Manning owned before him. Touchdown interception ratio, best in the country. They know what they have in him, and it's not everybody and not every good quarterback can run Josh Heupel's offense. You've got to be efficient, you got to be fast, and they know he can do it. And that's a difference between last year and this year. Is that last year they were trying to figure out which pieces fit. They at least know quarterback fits. They have some others around him. The offensive line gets back four of the starters. They have a 1,000-yard receiver coming back in Cedric Tillman. So the pieces are there. I think one big difference between last year and this year is that Josh Heupel last year came in with really no expectations. So any positives was met with, sort of a small parade a little bit. I think now that he won 7 games, went to a bowl game, scored a lot of points in a number of games, now the expectations will be heightened. And there won't be a celebration, over blowing out South Carolina or beating Kentucky or something like that. More, the expectations will be higher, and this fan base will want more in the second year.
Adam, I saw, a couple of articles that are really high on Tennessee and even approaching top 10 type of territory. Do you feel like that's something they're capable of this season?
No. I mean, it could happen when you see a team like Ole Miss last year, which has a similar offense and a similar setup with Lane Kiffin. They went on a run, and so if you can score a lot of points in this conference, you can do some things. I do think Tennessee is one of those teams that they've had a taste of success in their history. And so anytime they get a little bit of success, I think the expectations shoot up a whole lot quicker than other places. Mm-hmm. Texas is one of those teams.
Yes.
Notre Dame is one of those teams. Michigan is one of those teams. Nebraska is one of those teams. If you go from 5 wins to 7 or 8 wins, suddenly people start talking about 10 wins immediately. And I think Tennessee's just one of those places that you give them a little taste and people think a lot's coming. I could see them in the top 25, top 10, no.
Yeah, and you're right. You named them right out of – we could have named the same ones. It would have been the same list from one UT to another UT, and it's incredible the way that happens. Josh Heupel seems like he's given that place a spark pretty quickly, Adam, hasn't he?
Well, I think, they've had a string of coaches that have not worked out, at least not long-term. Derek Dooley and Butch Jones, and most recently Jeremy Pruitt, and then they've gone through an NCAA investigation because Pruitt's recruiting. They're recruiting under him. And, something I think was missing through a lot of those coaches, especially Pruitt, was there was no identity. There was nothing where a Tennessee fan could go in and say, we do this well. Even when they had a good record, it wasn't something they necessarily did well. What they do well now is offense. And, they scored early and often against Georgia and Alabama. They lost those games pretty big at the end, but they scored against them. They can score against anybody. And, say what you will about, if you can win in college football right now with just a really fast offense and a mediocre defense, but it at least puts butts in seats and it's entertaining and it can kind of get you from point A to point B. They've got to go to C, D, E, and F and head on down the line after this, but they are good at offense and they know that, and that's something you can hang your hat on.
Okay, Adam, maybe you can clarify something for us and our viewers and listeners. How much NIL money is really running through Knoxville there? Because the rumors are insane.
Yeah, a lot. It's funny. I can't put a number on it. I can say, in the maybe if you had to rank the NIL collectives, we talked about top 10 earlier. I think Tennessee's collective is probably in the top 5 in the country. And really, if you look around at the collectives that are really pouring a lot of money into this thing, into NIL, it's some of the ones that we listed off earlier, right? It's Tennessee and Nebraska and Texas and Oregon. It's, again, the teams that are hungry because they've tasted it before, but they're not where they want to be. Those are the teams where the collectives have really churned out a lot of money.
Adam, I know this doesn't pertain to next year, but we do have a lot of BYU fans that watch because of the new Big 12. And what can you tell us about the change in schedule? Tennessee no longer playing BYU in 2023, instead a matchup with Virginia.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about that one because I've been to BYU before. That's a pretty cool trip and a great place to see a game. They're trying to generate more revenue. They are going to have to pay a $2 million buyout. They see that as just a short-term expense. They want to go back to Nashville where they sell out, and it's a pretty popular place to play games for them. They'll get the ticket revenue back, and that they're getting most of the ticket revenue to play Virginia in Nashville. And so it's a better setup for them. It's almost another home game for them. And, they're reconfiguring the schedule quite a bit since their new AD came on board last year. And I think Josh Heupel's probably steering that a whole lot as well. I think BYU, they're going to play Arkansas now, and then they also get $2 million out of the Tennessee buyout. So it's a pretty good deal for both sides, I suppose.
Pittsburgh is their second game on the road. Last year they were dynamic at offense, and who knows, maybe they will be. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost Jordan Addison. Their quarterback was drafted. How much does that kind of come on the radar for a Tennessee fan?
I thought last year the Pittsburgh game was, a lot of the season hinged on that game. And I think it's the same for this year. I mean, that's a toss-up game. Pittsburgh could be ranked again despite those losses. I think Jordan Addison entering the portal was probably the best news that Knoxville could have gotten, because I do think they had it set up there to where they added another really good transfer, wide receiver, I think, from Akron, a freshman All-American. They had Jordan Addison coming back. They got a USC transfer to fill out Kenny Pickett's spot at quarterback. So there was a formula at Pitt to win that game again. I think there still is some pieces there, but since Addison went into the portal, Tennessee, which is probably about a touchdown underdog, maybe a field goal underdog, maybe that's an even game now. And if Tennessee wins that one, then they have a chance to, start off 4-0 or 5-1 or that sort of thing before they get to the gauntlet of Alabama and Georgia. And that's sort of the thing every year. If you can get past those early games and get to the middle of the schedule, you're probably going to lose to Alabama, Georgia, but you're kind of already got enough momentum built to maybe get an 8 or 9 win season. And I think that's in the cards if they beat Pitt.
You mentioned the scholarships or the NCAA investigation, Adam. If you don't mind, it's somebody on the chat room, Chris Foster. Tennessee will be a lot closer, or hang closer now, because their scholarship numbers will be closer. Last year, some teams were pushing that 100 level, and Tennessee was in the low 70s. Has that been made up?
Yeah, so they were at 72, I believe, last year. Plus, then you add in some super seniors. They got them into the upper 70s. Yeah, there was talk that they would cut more scholarships this year to sort of self-impose some more cuts. It doesn't look like that's the case. They're at about 80, I think, now for the fall, maybe 81, depending on which transfers they pick up. And they're going to be as close to 85, I think, as anybody else. They've turned in what they're going to with NCAA. They finished up their own internal investigation. So the cuts that they've already made, they've made. That's it. I think they're going to try to be at a full allotment of scholarships this year. And if the NCAA looks back and says you should have cut some more, then that's just going to have to be the case on down the road.
Adam, thank you very much for your time. Adam Sparks covers Tennessee for the Knoxville News Sentinel, part of the show on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Chris Foster, by the way, on one of the notes also. And the Brigham Young scheduling, yes, also the fact that they're joining the Big 12 in 2023, and so they're trying to maneuver their schedule as well. But anyone would be disappointed not to be able to, if you can, cover or go to the game as a fan to Provo, Utah in that setting they have, September or whenever.
How about getting $2 million for something you might have had to do anyway?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it works out for BYU in the long run. But, yeah, I think there's a disappointment because you might not ever play Tennessee again. I mean, when are you going to play them? So there was this opportunity to have, a unique matchup and have it in Provo. Now you don't know if you'll ever see the balls travel out there for any reason. So that's slightly disappointing. But, yeah, Tennessee definitely – a program that seems to be on the rise. Wasn't sure exactly how Josh Heupel would work out initially, but, to get bowl eligible and to, create a little momentum has obviously, served them well and created some excitement. And, I mean, that's a massive fan base that, all it takes is a little bit of excitement. They're going to be right there, 100,000 strong at your back. So I think Tennessee's overdue for some of the excitement that they, had going in the 90s in particular. I mean, shoot, man, growing up, like Nebraska was the team. Miami was the team. And then, like, not far behind, it was the Florida schools in Tennessee. I mean, that's basically the gang right there. And, I don't know if they're – a year or two away from being back in that mix, or maybe they're 5 or 10 years away from being in that mix, but they're at least, experiencing some positive momentum, got a great young quarterback prospect, obviously, and, Iamaleava, who I'm trying to say correctly, that they've got committed, plus Hooker, obviously right now, who's got a nice buzz about him, got some great skill guys. You're always going to have great skill guys with Josh Heupel, so, yeah, get a little bit better defensively, and they could create some more noise this year and build off of last year, but they do have – that stretch, I think it's he was talking about, there's like a month stretch where they played Georgia and Bama and, all those schools. There's one more that I'm not thinking of in like a three of the 4 weeks. I think they have a bye week in there.
Florida, LSU, Alabama.
But there's a bye week somewhere in there.
Florida off, LSU, Bama, UT Martin, Kentucky, Georgia.
Yeah, so they got to, the schedule's always going to be tough, but they do have some big dogs that they're going to face right there in the middle of the meat of that schedule and then towards the end. So it'll be very interesting to see, but they were definitely one of the, bright spots from last